Thanks everybody for coming tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Councilman Mike Bonin. I want to welcome you here to this meeting tonight to talk about what is one of the most significant and pressing and challenging issues in the community of Venice, in the city of Los Angeles, in the region, and really in the state of California. We have right now in this community and in this city an incredible crisis of homelessness, one that has gotten dramatically worse over the past couple years, one that is likely to get a little bit worse before it gets better, one that is getting worse around the city of Los Angeles. It is a challenge to who we are, it's an insult to our conscience, and it is, as anybody who lives in Venice knows, a crisis in each of our neighborhoods. We have in Los Angeles more homeless people than we ever have, and in more places than we've ever had them. There was a time in Los Angeles' history when homelessness was largely confined to Skid Row, with big pockets in Hollywood and in Venice. Over the past several years, the homeless population in Los Angeles has risen dramatically. It has increased over the past 2 years by 12%, and it has increased visibly in almost every neighborhood in Los Angeles. Not just in Venice, although it's a severe crisis in Venice, but in Van Nuys, in East Los Angeles, in South Los Angeles, in San Pedro, in Arleta, every single neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can see people sleeping under our bridges, in front of some of our schools, in front of some of our businesses. And it is a crisis about who we are. As I said, the problem in Los Angeles is probably going to get worse before it gets better. But it is, I think, going to get better. What we've done over the past decade in Los Angeles has been a lot, but it clearly hasn't been enough, and it clearly hasn't been working. Over the past 10 years, Los Angeles has actually housed more people than it ever has before, but the problem has gotten significantly worse. Some of the things we've done have been wrong and have backfired, and some of the things we've done we just haven't done aggressively enough or funded enough or done it sufficiently enough. We are not going to end homelessness in Venice unless we end homelessness in Los Angeles. So tonight I'm going to talk about the strategies that we're going to deploy around the county and around the city, and then I'm going to talk specifically about what we're going to be doing here in Venice. What we faced over the past couple years is, I think, the community throughout Los Angeles, and particularly in Venice, has come to a boiling point over homelessness. There are some people who have seen the problem on our streets and have demanded that the city act and the county act with compassion. And then there's other people who have acted with anger and with frustration, and there's many people who have acted with a combination of all of those emotions, and they have demanded action. It has been very hard for a very long time to do things in many of our communities because dealing with homelessness is so controversial and so divisive, and that there are no easy answers. But the one thing that is worse than controversy, the one thing that is worse than divisiveness, is inaction. And so what I wanted to do tonight was come here tonight and talk about several proposals, several ideas to begin to take action here in Venice. I am sure that there is something I will say tonight that everyone will find pleasing, and I'm equally confident there's something I will say tonight that everybody will find aggravating or frustrating or angering. But I can't wait any longer for consensus before we take action, because we need to eliminate the problem of homelessness in Los Angeles and here in Venice. Our format tonight is going to be, I'm going to give a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to do it in two parts. The first part is going to explain what the city and the county strategy is and give a little bit of an overview. And then the second part, I will detail a number of proposals and plans for here in the Venice community. Alone, these proposals will not end homelessness in Venice. It will be a start. It will be the start of what I hope will be significant progress that will take a very long time to accomplish. There's a number of folks here who will help me answer questions if you have it. After I do both ends of the presentation, I will take questions, I will listen to comments, and then I will have a number of the folks who are here tonight help me answer some of those questions. Tonight is the beginning of a conversation. I understand I'm going to be putting out a lot of information tonight. There's probably about 14, 15 different things I'm talking about tonight. Some of them will be well received and some of them won't be. And I am committed to doing a lot of community outreach and a lot of listening in our neighborhoods about all of these ideas. So if there's anything tonight that seems big or controversial, tonight is not the only meeting. Tonight is the first. I'll be happy to go to special town hall meetings. I'll be happy to do neighborhood meetings. I'll be happy to do a special session with the Venice Neighborhood Council to talk about individual proposals that we'll be talking about tonight. So let me just acknowledge a few of the folks who are here tonight who will help me answer some of the questions if we have them. Colleen Murphy from the St. Joseph Center is here tonight. Colleen, where are you? Thank you. Sandra Estrada from the Keene Project. Sandra here? She's in the back. Molly Reisman from Supervisor Sheila Kuehl's office from Los Angeles County. Thank you, Molly. Dara Papel from Chrysalis. Is Dara here from Chrysalis? I guess she's on her way. Camille Spalding from Google. Regina Weller from Foursquare Church. Thank you, Regina. Allison Hurst from SPY, Safe Place for Youth. Mark Salzberg from the Venice Neighborhood Council. Carl Lambert from the Venice Chamber. Marie Daniel from Department of Public Health, County of Los Angeles. Thank you, Marie. Jackie Wilcoxon from the county's Department of Mental Health. Thank you, Jackie. Elisa Orduna from the Mayor's Office.
She's on Electric Avenue.
Okay. That's Daniel Tam, also from the Mayor's Office. He's our area rep. Elisa is the Mayor's point person on homelessness. Peter Lynn, the Executive Director of Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. Mark Miller from Marina Del Rey Hospital. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Darcy Naiva from the West Side Coalition. Darcy, thank you for being here. We have Jason Robinson from SHARE. Jason, thank you for being here. Is Mike McKindo from LAFD with us yet? Thank you, Mike. Good to see you. Kathlena Gagnon from Lava May. Thank you both for being here. And also with us are Jeff Thompson from the CAO's office. He is the principal author of the City Homelessness Strategy Report that was just published. And Stephen Liu from the CLA's office, who also worked on it. We also have a number of folks here from LAPD, Captain Alberca and Captain Tippett among them. So again, what I'll do is I'll give the presentation summarizing both the city plan and then we'll explain some of the strategies for Venice, and then we'll do question and answer. So David, why don't we start the PowerPoint? So the first thing I wanted to do was give a little bit of an overview. I touched on this a little bit in my opening remarks. There are, according to the last homeless count that has been published, which was conducted about 14 months ago, 44,000 homeless people in Los Angeles County. That was done over every 2 years, and over the 2-year period since it had last been conducted, the homeless population in Los Angeles increased by 12%. And the number of encampments in Los Angeles, the number of people living in tents on our streets, the number of people living in vehicles increased by some 85% citywide. A particularly frightening statistic about homelessness in Los Angeles, and this is very different from most other cities, is that 70% of our homeless population on any given night is unsheltered. In the city of New York, for instance, folks have a guaranteed right to shelter. So in New York City, anybody can get a shelter bed. Here in Los Angeles, we have a guaranteed right by courts to sleep on a sidewalk. So because we have not been providing opportunities for people, we have 70% of our population here unsheltered. We just did another homeless count in late January, and those numbers should be out in about a month, in early May. And I have no actual evidence of this from LASA, but my guess, at least from what I've seen, is that those numbers have probably gone up over the past year. And we'll be seeing those results in just a little bit. There are over 100 or over 1,000 homeless people in Venice. The count last time was a little over 1,000 people. Again, I think that number may have gone up a little bit. The city and the county recently came up with very comprehensive homeless strategies. For a very long time, the city and the county have not worked together particularly effectively on homelessness. And it is absolutely essential that both agencies of government do it. There are things that the city and that New York has done that we have not done. There are things that San Francisco has done that we have not done. And one of the big differences is that both of those jurisdictions are both cities and counties. And the county in Los Angeles is really the big kahuna when it comes to homelessness. The county gets healthcare money. The county gets mental health money. The county gets social service money that the city doesn't have. They get it from the feds and from the state. So the fact that the city and the county worked together over a period of 6 to 9 months to come up with plans that are both parallel and complementary and symbiotic is incredibly important. The county in its strategy has, I believe, 49 different strategies. The city has, I think, is it 62? 64. There are things that the city is on the hook for doing that the county is not, so we have a few more things that they do. The thing that is impressive about both documents, go back just a second, David, is that they look at the roots of homelessness as well as ways of dealing with homelessness on the streets right now. So one of the things that the county identified is that a lot of people are discharged into homelessness from institutions, from hospitals, from jails, and even from foster care. We all know that the lack of income equality and affordable housing in Los Angeles is a big cause for it. So the fact that the city and the county both approved dramatic increases, groundbreaking increases that the state is now going to follow in the minimum wage is a big part of our strategy to prevent homelessness. The thing that I think is most impressive about both plans is that they have multiple approaches for multiple problems. There is no one type of homelessness, there is no one cause of homelessness, and there's no one solution to homelessness. So rather than putting all eggs in one basket, these strategies have various different approaches to deal with different types of homelessness and different solutions. So the principles of both the city and the county plan are pretty simple. One is to reduce homelessness to a functional zero here in Los Angeles. Now, a functional zero means not that you will never see another homeless person in Los Angeles, but that we will have the capacity to rapidly rehouse anyone who becomes homeless. The city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles, in large part due to Mayor Garcetti's leadership, picked up the challenge from Michelle Obama a couple years ago and decided to eliminate veterans homelessness. And the city has done more to end veterans homelessness than most cities and most states. The goal had been to end veterans homelessness by the end of last year. Unfortunately, two things happened. We found it very hard to find enough units for veterans who had housing vouchers, and more veterans became homeless at a faster rate than we anticipated. So the goal now is to get to a functional zero on veterans homelessness by the middle of this year. And then we hope to replicate that success with overall general homelessness in Los Angeles, to build in the infrastructure to get people housed rapidly. Both systems are data-based. They are centered around what is called CES, a coordinated entry system that basically surveys everyone who is homeless that is identified and quantifies all of their conditions, their history, and then puts them into a centralized database so that any agency that is dealing with anybody knows that the other agencies are dealing with them, and there can be a coordinated plan individualized for each person to help them get off the streets. Central to both plans is the concept of housing first. Not a week goes by that folks in government don't get usually the clip from the Jon Stewart show showing what they did in Salt Lake City, which is they implemented a housing first philosophy. Housing first essentially means that instead of the old way of doing things, which is we forced you to get sober or seek treatment for mental illness before we would give you a place to stay, housing first is we give you a place to stay and then help you get sober and help you get treatment afterwards. And that's a cornerstone of this plan, and it actually started really in Los Angeles. Central, of course, also is the fact that we simply absolutely need more affordable housing, and both plans call for significantly more affordable housing in Los Angeles. So in the city plan, which I'll talk about more, and Supervisor Kuhl's office is here if you want to hear more about the county plan, we talk both about the long-term and the short-term. We talk about long-term strategies to increase housing in Los Angeles. We talk about medium-term strategies to increase services. And then something that was very important to me in development of these plans is we also have a short-term street strategy. Under no scenario is homelessness going to end in Los Angeles or in Venice next year. And for too long, elected officials, politicians, government folks have had the press conference every couple years that says we're going to end homelessness by building permanent supportive housing. And then for whatever reason, the money doesn't come through, neighbors oppose projects, or whatever, the housing doesn't get built. In the meantime, people are still living on our streets, in front of our homes, our businesses, suffering from illness, getting sicker, not getting the services they need. So it was very important to me that in this plan, we deal with the immediate as well, and not pretend that this problem doesn't exist while we're working on the bigger one. So as I said, central to the city plan is the coordinated entry system. And this was started, actually, it was really built by Home for Good, which is a groundbreaking cooperation between the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce and the United Way. And as I said, it's a universal intake system where shared information between the different agencies that are trying to help people. There's actually a pilot program right now for a coordinated entry system for transition-aged youth, kids under the age of 25. And there's also a separate one for families, and we're merging all three of these systems so that we can get everything together, and that's going to be done under the leadership of Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. So, as I said, a big part of the city plan is housing, and as I said, we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. So we're looking at doing different types of housing. Obviously, a key part of it is permanent supportive housing. That's housing for folks who have been chronically homeless, who need a more extensive set of services in order to make the transition and to be able to make a permanent transition from living on the street to living in homes. Rapid rehousing is a term of art that refers basically to rental subsidies. It's for someone who has recently become homeless. It's a very effective strategy to give them rental subsidies for a couple months, maybe a smaller amount of services to help them get on their feet and get established, and then they're usually good to go from there. Instead of waiting for someone to become chronically homeless, to get much sicker, or develop a disability, we intervene early, and that's a key part of the city strategy. I mentioned transitional housing because it's something that we used to do a lot of, and the federal government is cutting funding for transitional housing. So we're looking at other strategies, but I put it up there because there's an important element of transitional housing. We have had a lot of transitional housing for victims of domestic violence, and about 31% of those homeless in my council district, part of the reason they're homeless is because of domestic violence. And because of federal cuts in how they do transitional housing, we're losing about 200 domestic violence shelter beds in the city of Los Angeles. And it's going to be very important for the city of Los Angeles in this year's budget to fill that gap. And that's something we're going to try to do in the budget deliberations that begin next month. A fourth element is shared housing, which is something which has been pretty popular with an agency called SHARE. Jason over here represents SHARE. It's basically getting folks who are living on the street, and if they have a source of income from SSI or general relief, matching them in a home that is looking for someone to share housing. So it may be a couple folks using roommates. And there has been some great success here in Venice and in other communities in getting folks off the streets using that. We're also looking at master lease programs. The county is doing a phenomenal job with a program that basically goes out and leases a bunch of units and puts folks who are frequent users of their emergency medical clinics into housing. We don't have a county emergency medical clinic here, so folks in Venice have not been able to avail themselves of that opportunity. Ocean Park Community Center in Santa Monica is doing a similar program where they're going out and renting units, and they become effectively the landlord, and then they move folks in more quickly than through a traditional voucher system. This is something in the city plan, at my urging, we're going to put money forward in order to buy into the county program and buy into other programs like this so we can more rapidly move people off the street. And then the final type is crisis bridge or interim housing. One of the things we want to do is change the nature of emergency shelters in Los Angeles, to stop making them big, huge warehouses that don't let people bring their belongings, don't let people bring their pets, don't let people stay with their significant others, and throw people out at 6 in the morning. We are going to be making a transition over the next few years into more of a bridge housing system that is more welcoming, that is more 24 hours, and that prevents or presents fewer barriers to people saying yes to shelter. So many people often say, everybody is service resistant, they refuse to go to shelter. There are so many reasons why someone wouldn't go to shelter. It's caused us to look at what's wrong with our shelter system and how we can change it and transform it. So in the city plan, it asks us to do a lot to change how we do land use in Los Angeles, and some of those are going to be big and controversial decisions. We need to do things to preserve affordable housing, which I'll talk about in a second. We need to make it easier to build affordable housing, and that means changing some of our land use laws to make the process faster for affordable housing projects. We need to make public land available for development of affordable housing so that it's easier to make it finance out. There is a proposal that is in there that will be the subject of some discussion to legalize accessory dwelling units, granny flats, which can be used as affordable housing. There'd be a requirement, obviously, that they be used for affordable housing. And then there is a proposal to make it easier to provide affordable housing or homeless housing by eliminating some of the parking requirements, because generally, if you're building housing for the homeless, most of those folks don't have vehicles to begin with, and it adds huge cost to a project to be requiring a parking space for every resident. So those are a number of the things in the city plan. The city also, and this gets to the sort of the street strategy I talked about and dealing with the fact that folks are living on the street, also calls for a number of different things. It calls for reducing the amount of stuff left on sidewalks by providing free voluntary storage for people who are homeless. Right now, the city only has 2 voluntary storage programs, a very tiny, tiny one that has about 24 bins on Venice Beach that started a couple years ago, and then a very big one in downtown Los Angeles on Skid Row, which obviously is inaccessible to folks in most parts of the city. So we are trying under this plan to build out storage facilities throughout the city so that it'll be easier for folks to leave their belongings someplace safe, so they can go to a medical appointment, they can go to a job interview, they can go to a housing interview, and that they can feel safe. We're also looking at replicating what was done in Santa Barbara, which is a safe parking program, which is where the city allocates, certain parking lots for the safe parking of people who are living in their vehicle while they are being transitioned into housing. It's been a very successful program in Santa Barbara, and it's something I've been pushing for here so that we don't have folks living on our residential streets, but we give them a place to stay with services, access to bathrooms, and a pipeline to housing. We're also talking about increasing access to showers, toilets, creating multi-service centers, and something that the county really has been leading on is sobering centers. Really a place where you can take folks on the street who are suffering from the effects of alcohol or drugs, and rather than tying up our LAPD or LAFD for hours at a hospital, bring them to what used to be called effectively a drunk tank and get them cleaned up. And in that moment when folks are recovering from the binge or the hangover, that's a sweet spot moment where folks are more likely to be accepting of services. So it's an alternative way of trying to do service delivery. So how the hell are we going to pay for this? The county's going to have an easier time paying for their plan because the county, as I said, gets all sorts of resources from the federal government and the state government. For the city, it's going to be a lot tougher. We have a much tougher budget. We've allocated about $15 or $20 million over the past few months for increased shelter capacity, for rapid rehousing, for some of the storage programs. But we really need to get to be able to spend billions of dollars. How many over 10 years? 1.8 billion over 10 years minimum. And that's not going to come by stopping all tree trimming or closing all our libraries. We're going to need an additional revenue source for that. So we haven't decided what ask we will be making of the voters, but in November, we will be making an ask of the voters to come up with a dedicated revenue stream for affordable housing and for homelessness. And we'll have some details on that in the next few weeks. Okay, so that brings me to the Venice-specific strategies. As I said, we're not going to end homelessness in Venice unless we end homelessness citywide. But we're not going to end homelessness citywide if every community in Los Angeles doesn't do its part, and unless we try to do various different things. So just to give you some background on the homeless population here, these are district statistics, not specifically Venice, but they give you a good accurate picture, is in this 11th district, which is all of the west side except for Santa Monica, we had almost 2,400 homeless people a year ago. And even here, the number of them who are unsheltered is even higher than the city average. It's 81%. They are 70% male, and the bulk of them are in between 25 and 54 years old. As you can see, about a quarter of them were identified as having substance abuse problems. 44% were identified as suffering from some form of mental illness. Another quarter of them from a physical disability. Nearly a third of them had an experience with domestic violence that led them to the streets. About 20% of them were veterans, and nearly half of them were chronically homeless, which means they have a disability or they've been homeless for a year and a half or so. This is just another way of looking at the statistics as well. Go on. In Venice, in the last count, they identified 947 homeless individuals and 56 family members and 3 unaccompanied minors. More specifically, in the count, and again this is a year ago, there were about 450 people on the streets, 75 in cars, 122 in vans, 98 in tents, 97 in campers, 109 encampments. I think that number has probably gone up over the past year. So in order to work on the city's homeless strategy, I sent a survey out to Venice to get a sense of what folks were thinking of, what folks identified as the biggest problems, and what folks were interested in as potential solutions. We got about 800 responses. It was sent out to my entire Venice email list. It was sent out through the Nextdoor network, and we asked organizations and neighborhood associations, the Venice Neighborhood Council, to circulate it. As it indicates here, it's not a scientific survey, but it was somewhat indicative. There was significant support for safe parking, for building housing on city-owned land, for expanding voluntary storage, for reforming and expanding the shelter system, as I talked about, for mobile restrooms and showers, for dedicated police officers trained to address homeless issues, and the biggest thing that folks were opposed to was inaction, was doing nothing. So the first element, I'm going to break the Venice-specific strategies down into 3 categories: housing, outreach and services, and then the so-called street strategy. So for housing, the first part of it is how do we preserve affordable housing? We have had a dramatic loss of affordable housing in the city of Los Angeles, and it's been particularly acute here in Venice. So there are 2 legislative strategies I want to talk about tonight. One is to reform what's called the Mellow Act. The Mellow Act is a state law which is meant to protect affordable housing in the coastal zone, which is Venice west of Lincoln. That has, the ordinance that has been in place for about 10 years has been a temporary and interim ordinance, and in my opinion it has not been enforced or monitored particularly effectively by the city of Los Angeles. We have already put in a proposal to strengthen and tighten this ordinance to make it considerably harder to eliminate affordable housing in the coastal zone. Right now, the way the law is structured is that If it proves financially infeasible for you to keep the affordable housing in a smaller project, you basically get rid of it. What we're going to be building in here is a fee system so that if that determination is made, you still have to pay a fee that can be used to build affordable housing or buy affordable housing covenants and extend them in the coastal zone. And we will be, the bulk of that work will begin this summer. The second effort we're taking to preserve affordable housing is legislation to deal with short-term rentals. I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to short-term rentals. There are many, I use short-term rentals when I go on vacation. There are many short-term rentals when someone rents out their primary residence or a room in their home, I have no problem with. But here in Venice, and throughout Los Angeles, but particularly acute in Venice, we have seen speculators come in, rogue hotel operators come in, and buy entire buildings, evict lots of people, and basically take a lot of rental housing and affordable housing off the market. And Council President Herb Wesson and I have a proposal to fix that, and that will be, the ordinance, draft ordinance should be out in April, and then we'll go through the city planning process. And I think that will be particularly helpful here in Venice. So then there's the question of building affordable housing. I announced this part, I didn't want to wait, I announced this part about a month ago. The Metro bus yard on Main Street has closed down. I'm on the Metro Board of Directors along with Supervisor Kuehl, who is my incredible partner on transportation and on affordable housing and on homelessness. And Sheila and I have directed Metro to turn that into a joint development project. That means that they will come to the community after they do the environmental mitigation. They will come to the community and they will develop a development proposal for that property. Metro's policy is that their portfolio of housing has to be minimum 35% affordable housing. We hope to get that for this property to be a lot higher. But we're going to be using this primarily to build more affordable housing in Venice. Let me address the 100% part. There's some folks who would like this to be 100%. We have to find someone who is willing to build it for us. If there is a developer who comes forward and says, I am willing to build this for 100% affordable, that's great. That's something that we would love. I don't know that we're going to find a lot of developers who are willing to do that, but if we do, that's wonderful. I'm just saying this is the floor by law and Metro policy. Next. So we also need to build not just affordable housing, and that affordable housing, by the way, would be for folks who make probably $35,000 or less. It's based on average median income in Los Angeles. We also need to build more housing for folks who are homeless, not just workforce housing, not just affordable housing. We need to build housing for folks who are homeless. And as I said, one of the key strategies the city is going to use for that is that we are going to use city property. And we are basically looking at every piece of city property in the city of Los Angeles, parking lots, vacant facilities, and looking to see how we can use them to build affordable housing. So there is one piece of property which I have identified, which will be the first up for consideration, and that is the parking lot at Dell and Pacific. Right now, that is an underutilized space. It's a single level of open air parking. Because parking is such a crisis in Venice, we will not take away the parking. We will maintain, we will require that the 177 spaces of parking remain. We might even be able to increase it somewhat. And then we will look to build housing for the homeless above that. And our goal is to keep it in compliance with the Venice Pacific Plan, so that would remain at 35 feet. The process will be community driven. It will start with a motion that I'll initiate at council, and then we will have to come out and we will have to talk to the community about exactly how it should look and sort of what type of mix of homeless housing we should have in it. Now, because folks tend to hear homeless housing and think of worst case scenarios, I want to show a couple photos of homeless housing in this area. This is the current lot right now, lot 701. This is a 23-unit building that was just opened by PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, in a residential neighborhood in Del Rey, not far from Culver Boulevard. It is a spectacular facility, 23 people who used to be homeless, many of them from Venice. I met a gentleman there at the opening named Edward, who was one of those cases who was on the streets of Venice, grew up on the west side, was homeless in Venice for about 7 years, and was one of those cases that had said no and was service resistant. And he is now in that housing as one of the residents, has a job and is getting supportive services. Another facility, something you have probably driven past 1,000,000 times and never knew that it was homeless housing, is at the corner of Washington and Beethoven. It used to be a motel. It is now run by Upward Bound House. It's technically in Culver City, although it's surrounded by Los Angeles on all sides. And that is housing for homeless families right now. And it's a wonderful facility. And then finally, this is at Culver and Inglewood, not far from LAPD's Pacific headquarters. This is, I can't remember how many units are in this building. It was opened by Tom Safran. It's a combination of affordable housing and homeless housing. I believe there are 13 units in this building for formerly homeless people, a number of them from Venice, one of them former clients of St. Joseph Center. So then there's the question of how do we provide more homeless housing, even that which we are not building. And I mentioned earlier the rapid rehousing program, those rental subsidies. And LASA runs a rapid rehousing program, and we have found it to be, as I said, pretty effective intervention for a lot of the folks who are newly homeless. And it's something that the city and the county are both investing in significantly. The city just allocated $11 million to expand rapid rehousing vouchers. The county has invested significantly in rapid rehousing and is doing more. And St. Joseph Center is the lead agency on the west side in this service provider area. And they have just recently housed about 20 people, I understand, through rapid rehousing vouchers. So let me talk a little bit about services and outreach. So one of the key elements of the strategy for the city and the county is this coordinated entry system, is using data, is getting everybody working on the same page, is sharing information. I wanted to make sure that we were doing a version of coordinated entry specific to Venice. So about a year ago, I launched something I call Venice Forward, and it is a coordinated entry system for Venice. I have brought together all the service agencies in Venice, a number of the big employers in Venice, all of the government agencies, and some individuals. We've got a working group, and I now want to sort of expand it out and broaden the universe now that we've got it functioning. But it has 3 goals. One is to get all the agencies working together so that if you are homeless and you're spending part of your day at St. Joseph Center, and part of your day at SPY, and part of your day at Venice Community Housing Corporation, all of the agencies are talking together to make sure somebody is the lead and that there's a strategy tailor-made for you. It's also to bring in community partners to help various projects, and it's to create a platform for sharing these success stories. It's so easy to believe that there are no success stories because we continue to see encampments in Los Angeles, and there's success stories every day, and we wanted to find a vehicle to publish those stories, share those stories, so folks would know that there are positive things happening with homelessness and there's a way to engage and help. So the agencies involved in this are the City of Los Angeles, the County of Los Angeles, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LAPD, Supervisor Kuehl and me, Marina Del Rey Hospital is a partner, the Venice Neighborhood Council, the Department of Mental Health from the county, the Mayor's Office, the Fire Department, and the Veterans Administration. St. Joseph Center, Venice Community Housing Corporation, Safe Place for Youth, which works with young people, SHARE, which I talked about, Venice Foursquare Church, Venice Family Clinic, Ocean Park Community Center in Santa Monica, the Teen Project, which has the drop-in center in Venice and also has Freehab in the Valley, which is one of the only free rehab programs for young people, PATH, New Directions for Veterans, the 1736 Family Crisis Center, and First to Serve, which runs the emergency winter shelter program. Also participating is Google, Snapchat, the Venice Chamber of Commerce, Upward Bound House, which I just showed you their facility a second ago in Washington and Beethoven, Chrysalis, United Way, the West Side Shelter and Hunger Coalition, and Whole Foods Market. So there's also other things that we're doing for enhanced outreach. One of the big things that has been a challenge in Los Angeles is until just a few months ago, Peter, how many outreach workers did we have countywide? 13. We had 13 outreach workers for the Homeless Services Authority countywide. How many do we have now?
We're pushing 60, actually.
We're pushing up to 60. And we have a number of them who are assigned specifically to Venice. They do outreach and engagement to people living on the street. There are essentially one full-time and one part-time Venice team. So there are 2 to 4 outreach workers assigned to Venice. And in order to stop them from spending half of their day driving in traffic from downtown Los Angeles, they are now based at the St. Joseph Center here in Venice doing outreach. Thank you. Also, we have an incredible outreach team here done by Pastor Weller and his wife, Regina. They have been doing incredible work with LAPD over the past couple years. They get folks housed and off the streets rapidly. They've done phenomenal work getting folks into share housing. And they have also done a lot of work with family reunification, getting folks back quickly with family members. Regina does an amazing job, and I'm going to be supporting them with a $50,000 grant because they've been doing most of their work for free. You're welcome, Regina. Another form of enhanced and expanded services we're doing is, this is the county that is doing this. I want to give the county credit for this. As you saw, about 44% of those on the west side who are homeless are suffering from some form of mental illness. Last year, the Exodus West Side Urgent Care Center, which does mental health treatment, closed down. I'm proud to report we got it reopened a couple months ago. The county is funding it, and it provides intensive care, crisis intervention, and linkage to social services for people who are suffering from mental health problems. And it's very key for LAPD and LAFD to have this resource close by. There is also a program which Supervisor Kuehl's office has been very supportive of. I'm not detailing every program that Sheila or the county does, but some key ones here is what is called the V-CHIP program, which also treats people who are dealing with mental illness. And that has been extremely effective. St. Joe's is a key player in that. And there's a number of folks who have been housed and brought into permanent supportive housing and jobs who have met and whose success was recently celebrated by the Shelter and Hunger Coalition as a result of this great mental health program. Another one is a need for the city of Los Angeles to better train its first responders. One of the things that has been a problem historically in Los Angeles is that we have not had an agency for people to call if you see someone who is homeless or who is in distress. So we've created a culture where the response is call LAPD. LAPD, they may seem like trained social workers, but most of the time they're not. That becomes a part of their job description, but it's really not. And so one of the things we're doing is increasing the training for LAPD in how to deal with mental health issues. And we increased that significantly in this year's budget. I think 30 officers from Pacific have gone through the, almost double that now, have gone through the training. We are also expanding what are known as SMART teams, which is the System-Wide Mental Assessment Response Unit, which is where teams of folks from the Department of Mental Health go out with trained officers as a team to respond to situations. Right now, we have one SMART team which is assigned to West Bureau, which is bigger than Pacific. It's the West Side plus Hollywood and Wilshire area. Over the next few months, we should be getting a dedicated team for Pacific Division specifically that can be doing a lot of work here in Venice. And then a program I wanted to mention that SPY is doing is one of the things that is very important for the population of young people who are homeless is giving them jobs. And SPY has put together a great education and youth employment program to help them get jobs. As I said, there's no one solution to homelessness, and the different subpopulations of folks who are homeless all have different needs, and one thing that is particularly effective to a lot of the folks who may have recently come to Los Angeles to try to break into the entertainment industry, or who are fleeing from abuse or sexual problems at home, is giving them a job and helping them get on their feet here at in Los Angeles. So finally, let me talk a little bit about the street strategy. As I said, there are only 2 places in all of Los Angeles where there are storage facilities, and there need to be at least 15 of them. There needs to be at least 1 in every single council district. There needs to be more in certain parts of town. The only one we have right now outside of Skid Row is in a storage trailer with no electricity, no light, down at the beach that holds just a couple dozen bins. And so there has been a lot of discussion over the past couple years about where to site a storage facility in Venice. No one has come up with a proposal that is universally acceptable. But what we know is that a single trailer on Venice Beach doesn't work. So I am proposing, LASA has looked at it and is recommending that we do this, that we look at the Westminster Senior Facility. The Senior Center has been closed down for a number of years. There are a number of folks who are interested in using the facility for different purposes. The Historical Society was interested in it. It sits adjacent to the very popular Venice Dog Park, and it is a problematic location because it's close to residences. But we cannot continue to allow all of these encampments on the streets of Los Angeles. And so we are coming up with a system to give people an opportunity to put things someplace safe so that then we can do more cleaning and keep our sidewalks free and passable. We basically have 2 choices. We can either have things continue to be on the street, or we can find a place to put them. This is not going to be a popular choice, I understand that. I am certainly open to an alternative if somebody can come up with a better suggestion. If there is a private property owner who wants to provide a large space to do a storage program, happy to do that. That's how it started in downtown Los Angeles, is a warehouse owner actually donated a large piece of property for a number of years. The organization that will be operating the program is Chrysalis. Chrysalis has been operating the program downtown for a very long time, for a couple years. They do a phenomenal job. And one of the benefits of having Chrysalis operate it is, if you're not familiar with Chrysalis, is they provide jobs to folks who are formerly homeless. One of the key elements of having Chrysalis run it as well is that part of the intake for the storage will be the coordinated entry system. So this isn't just going to be a place for folks to show up. It'll be a place where if you're dropping your stuff off there, you automatically get entered into the coordinated entry system we have, so it puts you on an easier path to getting services. And before this happens, there will be some community meetings, and there will be discussion about mitigations to make it more acceptable to the neighborhood. And that'll be managed by LASA. They're going to be managing the storage programs throughout the city, but they have a contract already with Chrysalis for the downtown one. So this is a suggestion that has been asked of me many, many times. Folks have said, why can't we have mobile showers or bathrooms for people who are homeless? And the number of people who sent me a link about Lava Mae, a successful program in San Francisco, probably numbers over 100. And what I have said to folks repeatedly is I will do exactly what the government in San Francisco did. In San Francisco, what happened was a bunch of neighbors were upset by the problem. They formed a nonprofit called Lava Mae. The government gave them free surplus buses and gave them permits to hook up to the water system. I can get the buses, I can get the hookups to the water system. And I was hoping that we'd get a sort of a homegrown nonprofit that would be willing to do it. Fortunately, Lava Mae from San Francisco is willing to operate down here, and if I can get them the funding or a trailer, which would take significantly less time to retrofit than a bus, then they will be able to do a mobile shower system down here in Venice. And I'm happy to say that they're eager to do it, and we're going to make that happen. And thank you. Restrooms. Last week, I left Gold's Gym at about 10:15 at night, and I parked at the lot next to Dogtown Lofts. And as I was pulling out, my headlights flashed on the trash can right next to the parking lot entrance. It also flashed on the body of someone who was squatting down and defecating. The number of times that happens in Venice is unbelievable. And it's not just people who are homeless. I lived at 18th and Pacific for 17 years. And the number of evenings or afternoons I could look out my bedroom window and see some guy pissing on the wall of my building, I couldn't count. It's because we simply don't have sufficient restroom facilities in Venice. This idea is not fully worked out, but one of the things that is in the city's homelessness plan is to come up with more access to 24-hour restrooms throughout the city. What I'm looking to do while I look for a more permanent solution is I'm going to be looking in this year's budget, which again is April and May, to see if we can have funding to keep some of the existing bathrooms at Venice Beach open later or 24/7. I should note that in the survey I sent around, this idea was not all that popular. An idea that was much more popular in the surveys was having porta potties at different locations in Venice. I think that was probably more popular because it didn't have a specific location. But if the neighborhood council wants to recommend different locations, and it's something that LAPD thinks would not create a public safety thing, then we will also look at that as well. But we need to be doing something. Finally, there's a couple missing pieces in this plan, admittedly. There's many, many, many missing pieces, and I'm sure a number of you will give me some feedback. But there's three missing pieces that I wanted to call out specifically and acknowledge that are missing. One is more shelter beds. As I said, we're trying to reform the way we do shelters in Los Angeles, and that's going to be a work in progress over the next couple years. But one thing that we're working on legislatively in the city of Los Angeles is something that makes it easier for private institutions, nonprofits, houses of worship, churches and stuff like that, to create mini shelters or safe havens without going through zoning hell and all sorts of incredible costs. We, right now, only declare a shelter emergency in the city of Los Angeles over a 4-month period every year. And we've basically passed a law that doesn't allow us to declare a shelter emergency during the rest of the year. That law is in the process of being changed. And that law will then allow for the siting of more shelter beds so that a church could open up some space, and will also allow for the development of the safe parking program that I mentioned earlier. There's a number of churches and synagogues that are already interested in operating a safe parking program, and there isn't a sufficient legal framework for it. So that's something that we're creating. The ordinance should be in the planning committee in the next couple weeks. It has already gotten enthusiastic approval from the Citywide Planning Commission about 2 months ago. The final thing is sobering center. I think there's a great and tremendous need for a sobering center. I think it would be very beneficial. The city and the county are working together, and the county is going to fund one in downtown Los Angeles, which is great. We certainly need one on the west side. I don't know that Venice necessarily needs to be the home of a sobering center. The west side's a very big area, and it could certainly be in any number of other communities on the west side, but it is something that I want to acknowledge as sort of necessary for here on the west side, but we don't have any specific location for that yet. Finally, and we can discuss this at length, is how can you help? You could get involved in joining Venice Forward if you're interested in doing that. If you are a landlord, We are continuing to have a problem, particularly in a very hot rental market, with folks making units available for folks who have a housing voucher, even folks who have that piece of paper, that golden lottery ticket that says, you know, we'll pay the difference in your rent. We still have a hard time, even for veterans, finding landlords who are willing. So we're looking for landlords who are willing to participate and open up units. And finally, there are a number of folks who have time or a small amount of money that they could use to support any of the various different organizations that we indicated are part of Venice Forward, all the nonprofits here. Or, you know, if there is someone with particularly deep pockets, and Venice now has a lot of folks with particularly deep pockets, you could give a large sum of money to the county's flexible housing subsidy program, and you could say, I want to give $500,000 or $1 million, and I want to essentially purchase a number of these vouchers, and then you can effectively say at the end of the day, I've housed 50 people, and I've turned their lives around. And that's something that I'm appealing to a number of the sort of bigger financial interests in Los Angeles to help us do. So that's the overview. Now we will do questions and comments. So we have passed out speaker cards. I know a lot of folks may not have filled out a speaker card because they didn't know what the hell I was going to say. Now that you've heard what I have to say, we'll pass out the speaker cards. We have a couple mics that can go around. We'll call the names and we'll go around. We'll do 2 minutes for each comment, and Omar will be keeping the timer. And I also want to underscore that because I know I unloaded a lot of new information tonight, this isn't the only time I'm coming out and having this discussion. I will do specific meetings on the specific proposals, so folks who are near something I proposed will have an opportunity to weigh in and let me know what they think.
Thank you. So Bonin, I heard a lot of strategies that you are working on. The timeline has not been given as well, but I also want to make sure that we also mentioned SB 82 program that is also being implemented by DMH to help out the homeless individuals out here in Venice and many other areas of the county. My question to you is a suggestion, because we've spoken about how many transitional housing and everything else will be implemented, but that didn't give us a timeline as well. How about suggestion having our community committee from Venice come together with you and many others and to help and support our housing, homelessness issues? Because we would like to hear from our community itself, not from other people as well, but also from community members. So as a community member from here, I would like to address as well in regards to having police address our homeless individuals that is not being appropriately being conducted, even though they're having mental health or any other implementation and education on mental health. I don't know how effective that's going to be, but just to make sure that a lot of the homeless individuals that is 90% dealing with mental health issues. So my suggestion is, I would like to propose to have a community committee be implemented, and I have many folks that would be sitting down with you.
Hello, everybody. I was wondering, Councilman Bonin, why we can't use the parking lots on the beach to make big tents and have policemen there, hire some people as security officers, have the people clean up to address the people that aren't mentally ill, because there's probably a lot of homeless people that are on their way to becoming mentally ill because they're homeless. And sir, I hate to be skeptical, but when they did that lake redevelopment for fair housing, that affordable housing, that wasn't affordable. And I'd also like to see that, the people that have rent control units, maybe if we could talk to neighbors and try to get some units there to rent to, homeless vets or something. I don't have a problem with homeless people because, I could be homeless myself. However, I do think when you have people that are mentally ill and you mix them in neighborhoods with children, people have some concerns, okay? So, and I think the beach lots are a good place to start just to see how people are going to behave, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Casing. I've lived in Venice for 4 years now, and I see in front of my place homeless every single day, 365 days, every day of the year. A lot of defecation, peeing, so forth. We need bathrooms, 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 and showers. Also, I am a huge advocate for legal camping. Why not? Cheap, easy, legal camping. We do all over LA County. Here's 10 acres in Lancaster, less than $500,000, 10 acres, very nice. Has utilities on it. Here over in Calabasas, much closer, 10.35 acres, less than $600,000, with 5 other acres available next door. Stream through it. Legal camping, please. And also, there's at least something like 10 to 14 empty hospitals and medical centers around Los Angeles have been closed for one reason or another. Perfect housing. They have cafeterias, showers, bathrooms, everything you need for homeless people. They can be home this year, not next year. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean Harrington. I've lived in Venice since 1974. I am a homeowner. I didn't become a homeowner until 1996, but in the last 5 years, my husband and I have been on the verge of being homeless and losing our home because of vandalism, break-ins, destroying our property, which, because I'm retired now, we are dependent upon because we live in a duplex. And I've spoken to a number of other community members who are not retired but are near retirement and are homeowners and have experienced similar kinds of problems. And we have gotten very little help with that. I do want to commend Councilperson Bonin for this incredible work that you've been doing. It's very important. Thank you.
Before I read the next 5 names, there's another car that is blocking some cars in the parking lot. It's a silver Mercedes 300D. If this is your car, I don't have a license plate number, but if it's your car, if you could go out and move that, that would be awesome. I'm going to read the next, before the next speaker, I'm going to read the next 5 names. If you could come up in queue. Marianne Thomas, Sylvia Aroth, Becky Dennison, Yvonne Guzman, and Alan Pick.
Hi, Mike. How are you? Hey, I just want to say, first of all, at the height of the recession, people put a roof over my head for a year, and I was a working girl, or not on the streets, which I would have made more money, but but as a working journalist for the LA Weekly, writing cover stories, I didn't have enough money at that point for a variety of reasons. I want to say I want to talk about a couple things. Mental illness, 44% on the streets. You know, we dehumanize these people. And I want to, Daniel Joseph Martinez, who's one of the great artists of our city and has shown in the Whitney, he told me that during the medieval times, the Germans, their solution, what they would do is they'd just put all the insane people on a boat and send it down a river. And if you can imagine what being a town drunk or a 15-year-old gay kid put on that boat, what that meant. And I don't really see a big difference between putting them out on the streets and confiscating their belongings, little crazy people, for them to find their belongings. I don't think we've improved our solution abilities since then. I think the second thing is, obviously what was working now, what we're doing now isn't working. It's not ROI for the city, all the money that you're spending. It's not ROI for the people who hate the homeless because they don't understand them. And I would also say that people are so angry at mentally ill homeless, including the fact that the city once voted to take away their medication, I believe, the city council, which is really crazy to me. And the truth is, they're crazy. They don't know how to get off the streets. They don't want to get off the streets. So I'm too cynical to believe this. We could really help them and that we have the political will, but I hope you do.
Hello, my name is Mary Ann Thomas, and I want to applaud the councilman's point on preserving affordable housing. If people are currently in affordable housing, keep them in their affordable housing. And I see that you are making connections with different departments in the city, planning, building and safety, and other departments. When the left hand or the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, then a department will rubber stamp a plan to take people out of their affordable housing and build a high-end project. And because one department doesn't know that the Mellow Act, which you're tightening up, should be scrutinizing this project, that department, like planning, may say, well, we haven't heard anybody complain, so it's fine with me if you pursue this Ellis Act eviction and remodel it or rebuild it for some new high-end project. So what I am saying, I've been reading blogs from San Francisco, and their thought is evictions equal homelessness. So it's very important that the councilman's project to let all the departments work together and keep people who are in affordable housing in their affordable housing, and not let veterans who are in affordable housing be thrown out on the street because of some machination of the Ellis Act. So what prevents more homelessness? People who are living somewhere staying there. So I thank the councilman for trying to get all the departments to see what's going on and to put a moratorium on this onslaught of evictions.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Roth. I'm on the Venice Neighborhood Council, and thank you, Mike, for all the hard work that you're doing. My points have all been addressed, especially by the woman before me. I was going to talk about the importance of not losing any more RSO units. I think it is hugely important that the city has a policy for no net loss, and it sounds like that's what we're working on, and I'm really hoping that there's follow through and we don't, I mean, I've been in Venice since the 60s, and the diversity and socioeconomic diversity has all but disappeared, and I think that we need to do something about keeping our town the reason so much of us live here. Thank you.
Yvonne Guzman, and ditto to both of the ladies that came before me. My question is, in reference to the Ellis Act and changing the mellow, in lieu fees still leave us with a net loss. So in lieu fees is really not the answer. I want to agree with the ladies and say, keep the people in their homes. Also, the small lot subdivision ordinance, that is something that is incentivizing people to kick, or owners to kick out the people that are already there. So really it's policy. So please change policy that allows for people to stay in their homes so that the people that we see on the street, a lot of them lived in Venice and have history in Venice. They don't go away. They were not going to go downtown. They're not going to go to Palmdale. They stay here because this is what they know. And even if it's on the street, they love Venice so much that they'll stay on the street. So we need to keep the people in their homes, like they said. Keep them in their houses. Don't kick them out. If you really want to make it stronger, in lieu fees is not, charge the people that are knocking down the houses illegally. We've had so many places knocked down illegally. We need to find those people, find $1 million so that there's no incentive for them to be knocking down homes illegally. anyway, it's policy driven. Please do the right policies for it.
I'm Becky Dennison from Venice Community Housing. I also do want to acknowledge these very concrete steps to move forward. I'm always going to say we need more, because we do need more, but I think this could provide a model for other districts and for us to bring this to scale at a much bigger level. I want to urge three things. Number one, I heard a little hesitancy around Westminster Senior Center. Move forward on Westminster Senior Center. The storage program that folks have put all of their volunteer time into needs a permanent home. It needs to expand. It needs to be done immediately. I also want to say that you said that you weren't sure if the developer would come forward to do 100% affordable housing at the MTA site. I'm now a developer. We'll do 100% affordable at the MTA site. And actually, there's a lot of for-profit developers who have offered to partner with us to do so, so it's not just Venice Community Housing. I think there's a development team that you'd be very interested in, but we need your help to craft the RFP to make that possible, okay? Right, like it has to make sure, we have to be sure that the project is structured so that's actually possible, and we need your help. And then the last piece is we've just got to...
Just be careful on that, because if you help me craft the RFP, you can't respond.
No. There's a community engagement process. We need your help to make sure the RFP can support a 100% affordable housing project, right? And the last piece is we've got to end criminalization. So you talked about first responders. We need to take the police out of the business of homelessness, because all that leads to is arrests and we need your vote tomorrow. We need your voice tomorrow on 5611, but that just has to be a piece of any solution. If the next 5 speakers could queue up: Jason Robeson, Laura Lee, John Ralphlino, Antoinette Reynolds, and David Ewing. And also, I think that Mercedes might still be there in case you're not sure if it's yours. It's 7 BAM 303. And I'm hoping that I don't need to keep making car announcements the entire night. Thank you.
My name is Alan Peck. I've lived in Venice for over 30 years now. I want to make a comment about the proposal of. I want to make a comment about the proposal about putting the fundraising on the ballot. I think it's a very, very dangerous proposal. It requires 2/3 vote to get it through. There's going to be several other proposals on the ballot for raising funds. Compared to some of these others, a lot of people are thinking that homelessness is not something they're going to be very sympathetic to funding. And I think these politicians who have not done much about it in the past would like to put this proposal on the ballot, see it lose by 2/3 or even pass, but to say, well, we tried. And I think that the politicians are going to have the courage to figure out themselves how to raise money without getting a proposal on the ballot. Thank you.
I'm Jason Robinson with Share, and I want to thank the councilman for the proposal and thank everybody for all their work, the county and the city, and all the providers, the community members. I just want to make sure everybody has the number for Share, which is 877-SHARE-49. Anybody that knows somebody that has SSI or similar income above $700 a month. We have over 20 vacancies right now. Call SHARE 877-SHARE-49 Monday through Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. and we'll connect people with units to move in right now. Thanks a lot. They're all over LA.
And I just want to remind all the speakers to say their names before they speak.
Most of you in the community know me. My name is Antoinette Reynolds. Currently, I am at the First Baptist Church of Venice under their ministry training. We have been servicing the homeless for probably more than, 5 years? In our food Hands Up ministry where we do our feeding. In the last 2 years, we have been housing homeless clients in our church. We used to have an after-school mentoring program, but we've opened it up. We have showers. They have ability to cook. Since I'm there as a mental health counselor, I'm not doing therapy, but I do counsel and refer clients, homeless clients, to the various agencies that are on the board. We currently just took the Phoenix House Sober Living, so we do have a co-ed, what we still call transitional, because we do not get funding from any of the city or federal governments. We just want you guys to know that we're on the map. We're housing people. We have families, children, individuals, those that have mental health issues. We refer them out to Dee Dee Hirsch, Edelman, and the various organizations that can handle that. Our clients are actively working. They have shelter. They get fed 3 times a week. They are able to cook their own food. And we're a spiritual empowerment community, so our clients are also having a spiritual experience. So we want you guys to refer people to us. Right now we have a waiting list. Hopefully we will be able to acquire some more property. We are looking for funding from our councilman's office to help us provide for those. No, we would really be interested in some of the vouchers if you guys are wanting to provide quicker housing for individuals. I know that a lot of people in the community have been, I have to finish this real quickly, complaining about the RVs. We are also housing some of our homeless people in RVs. They're able to shower, they go to work. So we want you guys to support the churches too, because we are able to assist our homeless individuals. And she's gonna translate in Spanish, because we do have Spanish speaking people.
Buenas noches, yo soy María Cano, soy ministra de la Primera Iglesia Bautista de Venice y quiero informarles a todos que nosotros damos servicios a los desamparados, a la gente que no tiene dónde comer, dónde dormir. Tenemos casas de transición, damos comida 3 veces a la semana en la Primera Iglesia Bautista de Venice y estamos localizados en la calle 7 y Westminster. So, para todos aquellos ustedes que necesitan gente que les ayude a las personas hispanas, nosotros estamos a su servicio. Les damos comida, les damos también ayuda espiritual, pero también ayuda de cómo guiarlos para salir de esa transición en la que se encuentran ellos como desamparados. Tenemos la ayuda de Minister Antoinette, que ellos los ayuda a llevar su caso, y les damos referencias con otras agencias que tenemos para poderles servir a nuestra comunidad. Y tómenos en cuenta para cualquier cosa. Amén. Gracias.
Hi, my name is Laura Lee. Longtime resident here, former business owner. I wanted to commend you and everyone here. This is the first time I've been in this room with all these people where there wasn't name calling and screaming and shouting. I know, that's huge. That's really huge. Because we all have been frustrated about a lot of things. So I think that we should really feel good about that. We're better than that. I just have a couple of things. One thing I didn't hear talked about is middle income housing, I guess it would be called. I have seen very many of my neighbors, longtime neighbors, be kind of nudged out of their apartments so that their units could become significantly increased in rent. These are neighbors who care about Venice, and these several multifamily buildings that are becoming short-term rentals or hotels. So that's an issue. And then the only other thing is I hope that as these ideas start to take place, that I didn't hear anything about hopefully that for instance, toilets, more toilets. Okay, will that allow our law enforcement then to enforce the people who are still shitting in my alley? Because we're all a big team, we're all part of this community, and we need them too. So Thank you so much, and thanks, you guys. I'm gonna leave before you start fighting. Okay?
The next 5 speakers: Karen Wolf, Jason Morrison, John Weston, Rick Garvey, Pat Raphael.
Hello, all right, I'm John Raefling. Thank you, Mike. This is very good. It's a good start. Obviously, you put a lot of thought into this issue, and obviously, you've been listening to a lot of what we've been talking about. Getting the bathrooms open is a big step. Getting showers. A couple of concerns I want to raise, though. Overall, I feel like this is progress, but there's concerns. One, the gentleman who spoke before me raised, which is the only thing I heard about funding all this, and this is going to cost a lot, is this ballot initiative of some sort. And my concern, and I think he was raising this as well, is that that's going to be a nice sort of politician's dodge, right? Well, we tried and the voters rejected it, and now, the issue's been pushed off, and, you can say that you did something. So my question is, and I don't expect you to answer it here and now, but I'm hoping that this will be part of the ongoing discussion, is what if the ballot initiative doesn't work? Because the need is still here, whether voters want to spend that money, and where are we going to get the money to fund this? Because this is bare minimum what we're talking about, absolutely 100% necessary. Where are we going to get the money? So that's the first question. Is there going to be the political will on your part and on your colleagues in the council to make tough decisions, to spend money to do this, because it is a humanitarian crisis that we are facing in this city. The second issue, and Becky Dennison raised this in her comments, and I'll stress it again, is that criminalization. The de facto policy of the city over the years has been to criminalize homeless people, to ticket them, to cite them, to arrest them. That wasn't really discussed in the presentation. And so the question is what are we going to do about that? Can we put an end to this criminalization? Because we've got a lot of long-term solutions that are going to take a long time to happen. And in the meantime, we need to stop criminalizing people for being poor and living on the streets.
I'm Karen Wolf. Thank you for being here, Mike, and thank you really for working on this. I have a few notes that I just made during the presentation. And one is, I saw focus on family. Is that focus on the family, as in the Dobson organization? I hope not. Okay. And don't see where they have much of a place in Venice.
Family reunification.
Fantastic. Okay. So I know that you have wonderful relationships in our among our tech company neighbors, and I think that can be great. And a few years ago, when they first started coming in, I wrote a blog post about, opening up dialogue with some of these most innovative people and workplaces in the world to help solve some of our social problems. And I work with incredibly innovative architects who think along the same lines. And I think that they're untapped. And so when I heard you mention looking for sponsors for the county vouchers, I think we should look to some of them and ask them, because some of them are the ones that are pushing the residents out, and they're using residential buildings as offices. And I work on public education, and if that happens too much in Venice, we're not going to have students to fill our schools here. Okay, that brings me to the new state school funding plan, the local control funding formula, which designates higher amounts of money, if I could have 20 more seconds, higher amounts of money to higher needs school districts, like those that have a high population of foster youth. And I would think that homelessness should be added to that. And if that could become a legislative priority at the state level, perhaps Ben Allen and Autumn Burke could work on that. And why were there no children on the list of homeless people on the count? It started at 18. It started at age 18. I just wondered. Please look at it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Weston. I've lived in the area since the early 70s. I'd like to thank you both for your extraordinary personal presentation and the news that you bring. There are 2 points that I'd like to make. One, I think the long-range potential for what you suggest, obviously, if is really quite optimistic and commendable. But I think we really need to address something today, for tomorrow, for next week, notwithstanding the inevitable bureaucratic and understandable delays. So I really urge, if there's anything at all that can be done, stopgap, short-term, imperfect as it may be, I think we really need to do so, both to deal with the incredible dehumanization of what we do to the people who don't have homes, and also the, frankly, equally, or not equally, but the very significant impact on those who are paying the price of having to provide locations for people who don't have places to live. I would suggest, and I recognize different jurisdictions and so forth, but there's an extraordinary piece of land which is safe, it's walled in, and it's near transportation facilities, and that's the VA facility on Wilshire, obviously, in West LA. And it seems to me, and I'm not talking about the empty structure for which I know there's lots of plans in place, but right now there's a lot of grass, not to be smoked, but to be utilized. Vast open spaces, fenced in, safe, and so forth. And I'd like to at least suggest that maybe, particularly given the significant number, and I think that percentage is probably low, of veterans, it might be particularly apt, if not successful and useful, if we can make some immediate emergency stopgap to try to utilize that area so people can stay in tiny homes, in tents, in something for the next 6 to 9 months, so we can do something immediately. Thank you again.
I'm Rick Garvey. I'm a longtime resident, and I actually work doing public health research with the homeless in Venice, and I have for the past 15 years. Mike, I really appreciate your presentation. To a lot of my activist friends, I want to push Venice forward. I have been a part of Venice Forward now for going on 7 or 8 months, and there is not enough input from the actual homeless activists. There's a lot of input from LAPD, a lot of input from the social service providers, which is fantastic, looking at you. One of the things I didn't hear about was food. I know that, downtown there's a lot of food available for homeless folks. That's another great time to get people talking, to get them into CES, to get them thinking about where they're going to spend the rest of their day. So I want to give a shout out to everybody in the community who provides food for the homeless. And most people have already said a lot of the things I'm going to say, so I just want to reiterate, I'm 100% behind the senior center being utilized for these purposes. I wonder why Venice Community Housing wasn't given that opportunity, but I'm okay with Chrysalis. And I also wanted to just throw out to everybody that it's going to be a long-term problem, it's going to be a long-term solution, and we really need to work on the criminalization, as some other people have said. I've heard some rumors about a business improvement district that's being planned, and I just want to say I'm opposed to that. But I really appreciate everything you did, and I know you're working hard. Thanks, Mike.
All right, the next 5 speakers, Matt Klein, Jeton Valentin, Claire Holroyd, Nick Anticello, and Daryl Dufay.
All right, my name is Pat Raphael. I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland, so I'm not from Venice. I just showed up here a year ago. I've never existed in a houseless situation before coming to Venice. And this is just for my short term here that I've gathered this vantage, and I'd like to share what I've gotten. So first of all, we understand that housing is not the same as shelters, right? What we provide in the short term is not a solution to homelessness. And just the premise that we're working with, ending homelessness, I think makes it too easy for the politicians to come with the politician answers and give very lofty goals that are going to have a hard time following through, because the goal of ending homelessness, I think, is a little bit too broad. So I'm recognizing that people who choose to live on the street, because there's a large component of the people on the street that have actively made this choice. There's not going to be a program that's going to take this person out of this situation. Instead, what we should be considering is to have these people have dignity, right? Have them be in the community with a little dignity. So to recognize that homeless people do have to eat, have to sleep, have to use the bathroom, have to have human-to-human relations, all the things that people in houses have to do, we do them as well in the streets. So to suggest that the problem of homelessness can be dealt with without recognizing that these very basic things can't be a part of our lives, to me is not really looking at the problem. So I'm also considering that there's people on the streets who are experiencing criminalization in a way, and I've heard this word said so many times, in a way that makes me feel that often the police department charged with doing this enforcement, I don't see that this is what they want to be doing. And I'm surprised that I'm up here in defense of the LAPD, but I don't think LAPD wants to be doing a lot of the enforcement actions that they're tasked with doing. So real quickly, just keep in mind, one of the solutions can be legal camping. I see they've given me another 20 seconds. Legal camping, something like opening the beaches just for a period of time to be able to set up a tent. Maybe the tents have to be up by 5 or 6 in the morning, but there has to be solutions that keep in mind some people will always be on the streets.
Hi, my name is Claire Holroyd. I live on Horizon Avenue, and I'm really grateful for your presentation tonight. I'm even more grateful to see my community. It's great to know that I'm not alone in, living with this and living with how we want to deal with this. So my concerns are more about the short term. In the last year, I've really seen a lot more people coming in, as you've stated. The other thing I've seen, and sadly I know it from past lives in Durham, North Carolina, and Seattle, a lot more meth coming in, a lot more heroin coming in. I'm seeing people on my daily walks, maybe I just have great timing, but I'm seeing altercations today on the corner of Speedway and Horizon. A man was beaten with a bat in his legs. I've seen people crying. I've seen, well beyond the normal defecation, masturbation kind of problems. And, I worry for my safety. I worry for my neighbor's safety who has an infant and she's being approached. People are looking and they're really getting more aggressive with her. And I'm concerned for the people who are living on the streets, and it's even more dangerous for them because they get to deal with that all the time. There's no place for them to go. So, every time that happens, I think to myself, what can I do? Who can I call? If it's not the police, can you give us resources that can effectively deal with someone who is losing their mind, someone who is, getting really aggressive, someone who's passed out on their face in their own vomit? What can I do? What can we do? Can we find those resources? Can you send us them so we can not just turn around and put my earphones on and keep walking?
On that one, I wonder if Supervisor Kuehl's office or Department of Mental Health might want to talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are being done in terms of helping folks suffering from mental illness.
I can say a few words. So Molly Reisman with Supervisor Kuehl's office. We do have on the mental health side some new resources over the past year that are really, I think, having a big impact. One of our first speakers talked about the mobile triage teams, which is our SB 82 team, where we're doing street outreach in a much more in-depth way than ever before. I don't know if Jackie's still here to talk about how people can contact the mobile triage team. I think she stepped out, but we can figure out how to we get a hand here about how to contact the mobile triage team.
For 482-6600.
Okay, so we got a phone.
It's straight for the operator, and they will refer you to anybody from the SB 82 team.
Okay, do we want to email?
482.
We'll send it out to Sheriff.
Okay.
6600. There's the SB 82, that's the mobile triage team that would go out, and they have in different spots, in different spot areas, which is the Venice, West area. They'll send out a team and go out, meet with the individual, help them get to mental health services, and also assist them with supporting housing or transitional or shelter. In the internet, you just go to DMH, and you go to the SB 82 mobile triage, and we'll give you all the information.
So we had folks talking about mobile triage team. That's a DMH resource through the county. Another resource that has to be a law enforcement referral, but we have also implemented Laura's Law in the county, which is for folks who are in really extreme dire straits of not being able to make informed decisions about accessing outpatient treatment. That, again, that's a law enforcement referral, but we are working very actively with Pacific Division to make those referrals when it's appropriate. So there are resources on the mental health side. On the substance abuse side, we don't have the same power to intervene when someone is deep in their addiction, and I think that's why we're also very supportive of the idea of a sobering center in this community. I think that is the best way to try and link people to treatment, but we don't have the same authority to step in when someone's struggling with their addiction. But we are really trying to ramp up on the mental health treatment side as well.
I want to thank Molly. I really can't underscore enough what an incredible partner and leader Supervisor Sheila Kuehl has been, and Supervisor Margaret Lee Thomas have been at the county level. They have really led the county in developing their homeless comprehensive strategy and have really been leading the charge to make sure that the different communities in Los Angeles and the city of Los Angeles have the resources. Without the two of them, we'd be lost in the tall grass, and I just want to thank Supervisor Ridley Thomas and Supervisor Kuehl again. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. My name is Nick Anticello. I'm a 25-year resident of Venice. I have a question regarding priorities and funding. This city was willing to invest $4 billion in the future Olympics. That's a 3-week event. Yet we're going to spend $2 billion over 10 years to fix homelessness. It's something I had to bring out tonight. Secondly, regarding the tech community, Cory Booker and Chris Christie got together with Mark Zuckerberg and got $100 million out of him for the city of Newark and their public schools. Is Google going to cough up here? Are they going to come to the table and make a serious commitment to homelessness? Because, in fact, they are part of the homeless problem here at Venice. The third thing I'd like to talk about in terms of funding is a real estate transfer tax, either on the commercial side or residential side, to fund this permanently. Because if you don't get this ballot initiative done, you're back at square one. And all this, which is a great presentation, I applaud you for doing this kind of work, it means nothing if you don't have the gas to put in the tank.
That's right.
And then one final thing I wanted to mention to you is the area of eminent domain seizure. Fixing homelessness is a public good. If there are properties in the rears and people aren't paying their taxes and you have bad landlords, why don't we eminent domain those properties and make them for homelessness? So think about those things, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Nick, for the suggestions. Just one notice is the documentary transfer tax, the real estate transfer tax, which I do support, does need to be approved by the voters. It's one of the three things we're looking at as a potential ballot measure.
Hi everybody, my name is Matt Klein. I'm one of your Venice neighborhood council members. I just wanted to use this opportunity while we still have a good crowd in the room to let you guys know about our neighborhood council elections, because I really do want to draw attention to that. You guys do not need to wait for these town hall meetings to get involved here. We meet in this building on the third Tuesday of every month to talk about issues that range from housing, homelessness, public safety, education. So I'm really urging you guys to please get involved. Please run for these elections. Take a stand. Have a voice. Election filing period ends April 6th, so fairly quickly, and elections will be on June 5th. So please go to our website, venicenc.org. Get involved. It's your Venice. We want you guys to be part of this community and have a say in what's going on. Lastly, one more event that's coming up is our Venice Green Expo, which is happening in 2 Saturdays, April 9th from now. We'd love for you guys to come visit Mark Twain Elementary. We're going to be celebrating green vendors, green merchants who are really looking to help our planet here. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
All further commercial announcements will be charged a fee to help fund homeless programs.
My name is John Valentine, I'm a longtime Venice resident. And Mike, you know Westminster Senior Center, it's been sitting there for a long time. Now, it needs to be done something to it. If it's not going to be free storage, and you know we need more, or if it's not going to be Venice Historical Society, let's have something, even if it's turtle racing. Let's have something in that building instead of just staying there. And you know the Mellow Act, it's not being enforced, but you know what's happening? Nobody's building apartments. They're tearing down perfectly good houses and putting up those mansions. We need a moratorium on those mansions so we can have affordable housing and housing for the homeless. And also, talking about bathrooms, it's stupid. The beach has bathrooms, and they need to be open 24/7. And everybody needs to know, homeless people are people too.
The next 5 speakers, Lydia Ponce, Mark Lipman, Yolanda Gonzalez, Didi Audet, and Peter Griswold.
Thank you very much. My name is Daryl Buffet. I've lived in Venice for 35 years. I had some questions about the big numbers you had. You mentioned 44,000. Then you mentioned affordable housing. I would assume that the 44,000 don't have money to afford the affordable housing. So that we're talking then about 44 places for 44,000 people as homeless. Am I off on that one?
The 44,000 is a countywide figure.
Correct.
In the city of Los Angeles, I believe it was 29,000.
All right.
And different folks have different means. Jason from SHARE talked about folks that they can rapidly rehouse who are on SSI or general relief or have an income stream. There are other folks who would be housed as a result, say recently homeless folks, with a rapid rehousing program, which is a rental subsidy for a few months, and then they usually get a job and they're fine. Permanent supportive housing is usually more of an ongoing cost.
Okay. The other is this astronomical growth of encampments. And it seems to me that very often people go to where they're going to be welcomed or feel that they're not going to be hassled. And I'm wondering how that is addressed in what you're looking at, so that right now we're talking about 25,000 and next, because all of these good things are being done in LA, now it's 50,000 and then it doubles again. It's a psychology I have no answer for, but it's the question I wanted to ask.
So on the question of encampments, we have encampments that other cities don't have. And that is partially a result of a federal court ruling and a legal settlement 10 years ago, where the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that they literally used this term, that it is cruel and unusual punishment for the city of Los Angeles to prohibit people from sleeping on sidewalks unless we provide housing and shelter as an alternative. A related lawsuit basically says, I'm oversimplifying here, that it's cruel and unusual punishment to not allow people to have their belongings if you don't have a place for them to put them. So in order to reduce the number of encampments, we need to increase the amount of housing and shelter available to those who need it. Accordingly, we need to increase the amount of storage available so folks have a place other than the sidewalks to put stuff. There are a number of different causes for homelessness in Los Angeles. As we saw, domestic violence is a big one. The affordable housing crisis is a big one. And hopefully dealing with some of those problems helps us create or helps us block some of the pipelines to homelessness. As I indicated earlier, in the county study, in the county strategy, they underscored the fact that their institutions, jails, foster care, hospitals, were releasing a lot of people into homelessness. And so one of the things the county is doing is expanding their coordinated entry system into jails, making sure that there's placements for people when they get out of foster care. So we're looking at a variety of different ways to stop sort of the pipelines to homelessness.
Thank you for the microphone, and thank you, Mike. Oh. Am I on? Thank you, Mike, very much for putting on this event. I think it's a very worthwhile event because I see people here that I know to be new. And those of us who've lived here a long time, we have seen the process of homelessness grow. Now, I want to turn my back on you and speak to these folks out here. Thank you for coming to listen to this and hear about it, because this fella knows a lot about it and he's on the job. But please, in our zeal to end homelessness, let's not fall into the trap into turning Venice into something that it never was, and I don't think we want it to become. If we fill this area with tall buildings, the city will make the property taxes to pay for a lot of these things. But is that what we want? No. I don't think so, because it would no longer be Venice. It would be Santa Monica or New York City, but it would never be Venice again. Thank you for coming.
She's hard to follow, isn't she? Lydia Ponce. I was one of the 800, and I asked that CD11 remove the word combat, because I don't believe any of the stuff that was presented, because that word exists there. We're talking about people. We're not combating people. And with regards to the alphabet, we have RSO, VSO, LS, mellow, lack of enforcement, and that's what it's about. If you want to talk about moratorium, and if you don't want to talk about a moratorium on mellow, then I'm talking about unseating. It's an unseating season. It's not just a re-election season.
Come on.
Because the actual fact is that my daughter, who's having my first grandchild, has to move to Texas because she can't afford to live here. And she could very well be on an affordable housing list, but it's being erased. So this isn't beyond personal. Every day that I leave my house and I thank the Creator that I have a roof over my head, I don't forget that the foster youth in our area is being underserved still. Not just because of Venice, not because of Mark Twain or Marina Del Rey, there's not enough resources. So the taxes that these tech companies are not paying could very well go to this program. They need to step it up. Ladies and gentlemen, we have original families in Venice, African American families related to Reese and Tabor. 2 of the 3 original families have a lawsuit against the city. VC Puck has a lawsuit because of the lack of enforcement of the laws that exist. We don't want in-lieu fees because the in-lieu fees sit in City Hall and collect interest and have yet, even for parking, have been spent for the $18,000 per space. Where's the parking structure? So I don't believe that this in-lieu fee is going to solve some of the problems unless they make it $1 million. And for the love of God, if someone's going to build a 6,000 square foot home or 4,782 square foot home, they need to take some of these foster youth or some of the Syrian refugees. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mark Lippman. First, thank you, Mike, for putting this on. This is a good first step, so thank you. I want to recognize that. When we're talking about homelessness, we also need to recognize that we have a major displacement crisis in our city. We need to start talking about how there are 70,000 evictions going through the courts every year. Most of this is just to push people out into the streets. 70,000 a year. Just wanted to bring that up. But to get to the point I'd like to speak about is budgetary. Is that I feel it's atrocious to have companies like Google and Snapchat and all these big tech companies getting an 80% tax break, and none of that money comes back to Venice, by the way. And then we have to beg them for crumbs. No, just make them pay their fair share of taxes, and then we'll have the money to fund these programs. It's simple. I think we should implement a gentrification tax so that these big real estate developers who are putting all this stuff up will be forced to pay, so we don't have to go and beg them for crumbs and scraps with little incentives and density bonuses. No, make them pay their fair share, and then we'll have the money, because we're talking about trying to get $180 million for the next 10 years, or a year for the next 10 years, and compare that to $3 billion we're spending for LAPD every year. And I just question, do we have our priorities right? When we don't fund needed public services, but we make sure that we have more than enough money for LAPD and to criminalize basic human functions. I think that's fundamentally wrong with who we are as a people. I think we can do much better. And I know Mike is listening. I'm not coming down here. I want to work with you on this, and I think the community does too, so let's find those solutions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peter. Over the years, the city and the county have been selling off a lot of surplus property, and some of it is still there. It's not too late for local governments to dedicate some of the property for the creation of affordable and homeless housing. Governments could even trade for or purchase private properties that make for appropriate low-cost housing sites. Low-cost housing for low-income and homeless residents can and should be built much less expensively than as happens now. Let's restrain the bureaucracy and high-priced designs. Let's not repeat the Taj Mahal recently done in Skid Row. All urban and all areas should have some buildings that offer basic housing units. For example, the micro unit for a single person, a modest unit for a couple, an econo unit for a family, and some additional for each additional child. I personally invest in those, as I have in the past. I like SROs. The idea is that we not ghettoize any particular area, but instead spread basic low-cost housing all around the region, increasing the economic diversity of our neighborhoods. Basic physical needs for a homeless person or a person with serious disabilities They really just need a space to sleep, to eat, and to bathe. The social and psychological assistance goes beyond that. And for some of these projects, the government, the building departments should have a deferred permit process where they could take back a first trustee and collect it plus interest at the completion of the project.
Next 5 speakers: Peggy Lee Kennedy, Calvin Moss, Linda Lux, Chris Baca, and Liz Wright.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the greatest attendance I've seen for an initiative and also for a problem to be solved here in our community. My name is Yolanda Gonzalez, and I've been active in this city of Los Angeles for many years, not only in saving people's homes when they don't have to pay for their taxes, like Dee Dee and I, or their utilities, but one of the things that I see here is the County of Los Angeles Initiative Program. This was taken back from the Congress of 2008 that I attended, and nothing has been accomplished. As an investor, as a HUD certified occupancy specialist, they have to understand that if affordable or low-income housing is made available, other people can qualify for those homes. It's just not for one community. And you know that this happens in Boyle Heights where people think that they can just qualify. We need to integrate, and that's a really serious consistent. I was one of the initiatives that started feeding the homeless in Santa Monica, but Santa Monica just pushed their homeless out to us. We're never going to solve our problem here in Los Angeles because what's happening is that they're bringing them in because we are a sanctuary city, and they're dropping them off here in the city of Los Angeles. I've been a witness to that, and even LAPD knows about it. They're dropping them off between the boundaries of Alhambra and Sereno. They dropped them off at my properties a couple weeks ago, and they're dropping them everywhere. But I don't see this problem going on in South Pasadena, Alhambra, Temple City. I went all the way to Montebello yesterday, and they didn't have this problem. It's only the city of Los Angeles. Is it fair for the taxpayer of the city of Los Angeles to hold on and pay for other cities and other counties of this problem? It is the obligation of the city council and everybody else and the surrounding cities to solve the problem with us. Thank you.
Wow, I was told to stand on the blue X. Hi, I'm Peggy Lee Kennedy with the Venice Justice Committee. We need housing for extremely low and also low-income houseless people. Sometimes affordable housing is too expensive for very low-income people. So to say that even 35% is affordable could be unaffordable for an unhoused person. Safe parking. That was number 1 on your list from your survey. Gee, I remember that from Bill Rosendahl when you were chief of staff. And you know, what about those city lots? You know, this is an emergency. Put up tents. Bring in trailers and open the toilets, for God's sakes. It's an emergency. People die. Do you know people die from being homeless? They get sick, they go to the hospital, they go to a nursing home, they get Medi-Cal that pays for the nursing home, and then they're housed until they die. It's a horror story. Having the LAPD issue mass tickets and arrest unhoused people for infraction warrants is no solution, and it costs way too much. It's costing the city a lot of money. And it's cruel. It's inhumane. When just like a little over a year ago, you went in front of the police commission and got all these neighborhood watch people with you, and they all were saying how afraid of the homeless people, and then we got all these. LAPD, new LAPD in Venice to issue mass tickets. That's all they're doing is ticket, 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 ticket. Isn't that a waste of city resources? And it's just mean, just mean. Take the police out of the equation. Why are they first responders? It doesn't make sense. Unless there is a violent incident, you do not need armed police officers.
Hello, my name is Calvin Moss, and I am an activist. I've been an activist for over 30 years in Santa Monica and Venice Beach. And I'd like to read 3 names off of people who have lost their lives in Venice on the streets. One is Brendan Glenn. He was murdered on May 5th, 2015. Jason Davis, July 13th, 2015. And Jason Warren, August 30th, 2015. These people were murdered by the LAPD and a vigilante attack on a security guard. Now, this was probably the worst year in Venice homeless history. And not enough has been said about this because these are my homeless brothers. Because I work with Food Not Bombs, and we are the outreach. For 10 years on Venice Beach, we were the outreach. And the social services and the police are afraid of the homeless. That is true. That is true. They're afraid of the homeless. The St. Joseph Center has said they will only go out, their outreach will only go out with police escort. And there's only 2 or 3 of them. We've been out, I've been the outreach for 20 years out there. So have you. And you should understand the city doesn't even mention the work done by the activists in this community. You know, and the attorneys that have helped us were not even on this equation, which has happened, you know, in Santa Monica and Venice. And I think that Mike should reach out to the activist organizations, the Venice Justice Committee, and the Food Not Bombs and the Occupy people, and should talk to them about solutions because they are the people out there doing the outreach. They're not afraid of the homeless. I've worked with the homeless for over 30 years, and I think that should be done, that we should not be ignored. And it's a tragedy that you've ignored the civilian activists who are not nonprofits. I am not part of a nonprofit. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Venice. I'm Linda Lux, and I've been here since 1970. And I want to thank you, Mike, for putting the years that have gone into tonight, getting here. But I have to say, which I think you've heard in many different ways, time is not on our side. So it's taken 4 years to get here, and it's a wonderful place to be. I'm thrilled with the proposals, but I need to know when. How long is it going to take? It can't take another 4 years to implement these. It has to be on the fast track, and we're in an emergency. We have 5611 about the criminalization of homeless is a hearing tomorrow that has to be done away with, and we need you to lead that. We need, really what we need, if you really want to make a dent all over the city in housing people, the one way to do it that doesn't cost money and is doable, and within 4 years, thousands and thousands could be housed, is to use government land, city land, county land, federal land. Nonprofits and some for-profit low-income developers would rush to get long-term leases I know you do, but they're all over the city. I know there are over 400 parcels that the city owns in CD11 alone. Over 400 in just this district. So there's more than 2 that would be eligible. There's a motion, I think you seconded, that Cedillo put in to make this a citywide effort. It takes leadership. The mayor has to step up and say, I want to leave office, and you need to step up and say, when I leave office, I want to say that I house many thousands of people. And the only way to do that is to do what you're doing, but do it faster. Thank you.
Hi, Mike, and thank you for putting this together. My name is Chris Baca. I'm the Executive Director of Meals on Wheels West. And I'd just like to say, first off, there's flyers in the back. If you know anybody who is housed but is homebound, we do have budget right now to feed people. So pick up a flyer in the back. It may be a neighbor, it may be a friend, and we'll certainly try and accommodate them. And one of the things I'd like the City Council and you to consider is housing first is a great idea and the right way to go. But the wraparound services, whether it's mental health services or food from my organization or counseling of any other kind, is really important. I would urge you to carve out some money from the housing and the homeless to provide wraparound services. For instance, 13% of veterans who do get housed lose their housing because they don't have the ability to maintain themselves in that housing. So wraparound services are really important. Thank you.
I'm going to call up the next 5 speakers. Regina Weller, Keith Martin, Melissa Diner, Elvis Summers, and Margaret Malloy.
Mike, you've done a lot of work. And when you retire, you can write a book on how to get 95 different agencies on the same page. It'll be a winner. And I would like to take this opportunity to advise you to come back early on Thursday evening so that you will not miss Politics Ain't for Sissies, which is the Venice Neighborhood Council's upcoming event. It is going to be fabulous with Deborah Bowen, former Secretary of State, Betsy Butler, former Assembly person, and Ruth Galanger, who was longtime representing in Venice, in your seat. Okay. 7 to 9 p.m. Thursday.
My name is Chaplain Regina Weller. My name is Chaplain Regina Weller, and I'm part of Venice Foursquare Chaplains and the Homeless Task Force. And I heard this man, I apologize for my outburst. I am passionate about outreach and engagement in this town. And most people aren't up at 5:30 in the morning when we're out walking through the camps. And I want to say this, I was homeless 23 years ago in Venice. Okay, I know about it. I know how to help people. I know what their needs are. I carry this. I don't think I can memorize it, I'm so old already. I carry a portion of the Declaration of Independence in my hand when I go out there. It's old and it's wrinkled.
Everybody's a citizen.
That's right. Let me read it to you. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creators with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know what affects me most? The pursuit of happiness. What does that mean? It means well-being. It means contentment, that I can achieve, to have joy in my life. And I know that they didn't have homelessness in mind. They didn't. And the whole person needs a home. I'm going to say that most of the social services agencies, including myself many years ago, because I've been doing this a long time, never thought about the whole person. We're trying to do that now. All the agencies are, and we are not afraid. We are not. We're out there in the middle of the night. We get calls all the time, emergency calls, and I'm going to tell you who picks us up. It's the police. The police pick us up. And these people that pick us up, these officers, are community relation officers. But you don't see that. You don't see that we placed 201 people last year into housing. You don't see that. You don't see that the last 2 months we placed 26 people. Officers that have a heart.
Hello, Mike. No disrespect, but you've been in this job for a long time, and I'm appalled that we're at this point all these years later. 2010, safe parking was proposed. It never happened, not once. There was a grant. There wasn't one single potential parking lot offered. So it all sounded really great tonight, but without political will and with the prevalent NIMBYism, what does it mean? I called your office last year. After all those years in office, I said I want a map, CD11, Venice Beach area. I want to know where the bathrooms are, where the showers are, and where the drinking fountains are. The map doesn't exist, and it was unavailable. And Nancy Aguilar told me she would work on it, and then she told me it wasn't going to happen. Recently, I contacted your office and said, we are losing housing epidemically. Illegal conversion to hotels, illegal conversion to offices, illegal conversion to retail use. I think your people know that. I was referred to the ZA's office. Why? Why is that my responsibility? Why does this whole entire community have to be a watchdog to tell your office to enforce, to get the city to enforce its own laws? It's outrageous. It's completely outrageous. You people get paid for your job. Planning gets paid. LADBS get paid. I could give you an arm length of change of use, illegal change of use complaints, all unanswered. Tenants gone. You're BFF with some of these people. They're actually part of Venice Forward. We don't want crumbs from the table. We want protection of housing, protection of community, integrity of community, respect for homeless people. Every single person is a member of our community. The people with the walkers and the wheelchairs, they didn't get here from somewhere else. It's not the myth of freeloaders. They're being displaced. Thank you. I'm telling you, it's really serious.
David Ewing, Will Hawkins, Cleo Ray, Donna Meek, Regan Kibbe, and Susie Shannon.
We just want to remind everybody to keep comments to 2 minutes. We still have quite a few speaker cards to get through.
Hello, my name is Elvis Summers and I build tiny houses for the homeless. They are very misunderstood. It is not a solution, it is just the first step. The reason I do what I do is because nobody's thinking about tonight. We're all going home to a nice warm bed. Many people are not. Tiny houses can very easily incorporate into everything you're doing and all your plans of permanent housing and all this stuff, but it takes care of tonight and gives people a warm, safe place to be. People need purpose. We all have at least one in life. It's what drives us. The homeless do not have a purpose right now. They have nothing that drives them. They need purpose. Nothing is going to change unless they have the opportunity to do something else. As far as the tiny houses go, before anybody says they're this, they're that, and this is especially for you, sir, I have a tiny house in the parking lot, and I would very much like you and all of you to come take a look at it and see what it is. See that it's, you know, safe and this and that and blah, blah. But please come out and take a look at it. I'll leave it at that.
My name is David Ewing. I have some questions. I wanted to challenge you on, somebody else brought up a timeline. I wanted to challenge, or I would like to challenge you, to put a target date on every item in your PowerPoint tonight. It may change, may have to change, but a target date to start with. The ballot measure you talked about, that's a hard sell. But what you could do, it's polling well. What you could do is commit to it as an expenditure. You could commit to that expenditure on solving homelessness and tell voters that unless they pass the ballot measure, they're going to lose some other services because that money is going to the homeless. There are people that you don't talk to, and some of them have spoken very eloquently tonight. And some of them are homeless advocates, and some of the homeless advocates didn't come tonight because of the treatment they got before. You need to talk to these people, okay? The other thing is, I get the very strong feeling that we're the last stop, okay? That there have been lots of talks with other people. You've been talking with the tech companies, you've been talking with the service providers, you've been talking with all kinds of people. But here we are. We're not seeing some of the people we would have expected to see here. And I assume it's because they've already spoken with you. I may be wrong, but in any case, this should have been the front end of the process, I think. Anyway, I want to just reiterate what somebody said about Brandon Glenn. He seems to have disappeared off the map of that we make of our lives here. Time. Subsidizing MTA development. Why isn't there in your thing? Why? You say, well, we'll have to see what's possible with the developer. Why aren't we talking about the possibility of subsidizing the development? I talked to the... Metro can't subsidize the train. Right, but we can't. And okay, yes, okay, sorry.
And I would like to thank the Academy. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to speak, although I do wish this had come earlier in the process. I'm going to use my time before they give me the hook to make a personal testimonial. I love that you're all here. I just wish that more people were here to hear what I'm about to say. And that is, I am hoping that there is a young documentary filmmaker, or an old one, I don't care, out there who wants to make his or her bones, because I would love them to make a documentary film about the homeless task force in Venice and the work that the councilman is doing, and all of the people, especially the founders, chaplains Stephen and Regina Weller. They saved hundreds of thousands of lives over 20 years. They're poor. They didn't make any money. They did it all with very little money. They have an extremely good record with just the two of them. And I know because they saved my life. Thank you.
No one talks about it. Mike Bonin is trying to bury the dead without talking about it. They're murderers. You're all complacent to murderers because you haven't talked about the 3 homeless people murdered in 2015. That should have been a topic tonight, brought up by the LAPD and community relationship people and Mike Bonin.
Thanks, Calvin. You had your opportunity. It's Susie's turn.
Hi, I'm Susie Shannon with the organization Poverty Matters, and last November we had a forum where we brought out folks from Utah who had created the Housing First program there. Mike Bonin was there, Senator Hallie Mitchell was there, and I'm pleased to say that Senator Hallie Mitchell has just introduced SB 1380 to move California onto a Housing First model with a trust fund where cities and counties and also nonprofits can actually apply for grants from that program to help with their trust funds and affordable housing. I do want to point out that while we have a homeless housing crisis, we also have something that I call a service delivery crisis. So we help people get into housing, but it's actually very difficult. We have affordable housing developers who actually exclude people who are homeless from their application process by basically stating on the application they have to have 24 to 36 months of permanent rental history with no gaps, which I find to be discriminatory and somewhat illegal, and I hope that we can stop that in Los Angeles. We also have service providers, because we're the homeless capital of the United States, who decide who gets help, how they get help, and when they get helped. And there's no government oversight, so they're taking government money, but there's no quality control. We had one woman, it took 6 weeks to get her into a shelter. At the 5th week of going to the shelter every single day, I had an elected official call me and say, can you please help this woman? When I called the shelter, which is a coordinated entry system shelter, my first question was, has she been entered into the coordinated entry system? And it was dead silence. So CES isn't really working the way it's supposed to. There's no government oversight. So I hope we can work on that, because no matter how much we do here, as long as the nonprofits are deciding who gets helped and who gets tracked for housing or who gets sent back out under a bridge, we're still going to be having the same problem. Thanks.
I'm going to call the remaining 9 speakers. If you can line up: Daryl Barnett, Esther Raucher, Brandon Scott Barney, Cece Carter, Nikki Harriton, Mike Chamness, Jordan Alexander Nielsen, John Seeley, and Pamela Bellew.
Hi, Mike. My name is Regan Kibbe. I've been in Venice. I'm a native Angelino from Santa Monica, and I've been in Venice for about 30 plus years, since about 1978. First as a UCLA student in a rental, a rental unit where the rent was really low, and now as a mom and a homeowner. I want to thank you for this, but also I want to thank you for a lot of other things, for what you're trying to do with the bus station where I live next to it on Thornton for 20-something years, and also for sending people to try to show up. I've always loved Venice very much and really felt a lot of community, but recently our street is really lonely and decimated by short-term housing. So my daughter is 11, she grew up with a lot of kids. There's no more kids on our street. All the houses on Washington Way, quite a number of them, they're small, they've been rented out. And so I felt a lot like moving because I don't have any more neighbors. So I'm concerned about thank you for introducing the bill about short-term rentals, and I too use short-term rentals all the time and have rented out a neighbor who rents out their guest house, but there's still a neighbor there. But I'm concerned about passing the bill and enforcing the bill. I went to court recently because a neighbor who's a guy who's good guy, great taste, but he's taken 8 houses in Venice and made them beautiful short-term rentals. He took the illegal guest house, put a kitchen in it, made 2 short-term rentals, divided up the driveway. Just my neighbor Don and I showed up to protest. There was no one else to show up because there's no more neighbors, because the whole street is short-term rentals. There was one gal from your office, which I was so grateful to, but the city still stood with that guy and said, yes, let's let him legally bring it to code because it's illegal. So anyway, there's more to talk about, but I just want to ask, while we're doing all this and trying to incentivize affordable housing, we still try to keep the Venice-specific plan in mind, because I think a lot of times the developers say, oh, I'm going to put in affordable housing, and it's not really affordable, and they use it to get variances. So thank you for your work on behalf of the community.
Hi, I'm Daryl Barnett, and I've known you for 20 years now, Mike, and we knew when you were elected councilman that we were going to be on different sides of issues and not always agree, and tonight is one of those times. It's great that Venice is a destination, but I don't think that we have to be the recipient of all the people that want to come here and live on the streets and sacrifice certain qualities of life in order to accommodate that. Anyone that lived here in the 90s remembers why the bathrooms were closed on the beach, because there were stabbings, rapes, prostitution, drugs, and all things going on all night in the bathrooms, and that's why they were closed in the first place. And to open up the beach, well, that's a whole other thing. But as far as Westminster Senior Center, I believe that it's the goal of the Recreation and Parks to provide centers that serve the community, the whole community. And because this center is attached to the dog park, it would greatly affect something that we worked hard on, that several hundred people have already signed a petition against. There's already several hundred people that use the dog park. There's already a problem with transients living by the side of the dog park, putting their dogs in the dog park and leaving for hours. These dogs are unvaccinated, and it's just not an appropriate place to create this situation that has functioned on its own for all these years because of all the hard work we put into it in the first place. And you were one of those people. Thank you.
My name is Brandon Barney, and I'm actually a host and producer on a public radio show serving Southern California. I'm excited to hear this conversation has taken place here at a time when the issue is so serious. I thank you for your efforts. On our show, we cover how technology is affecting the world. One of the issues that I'm afraid to cover is how companies like Airbnb profit some people while harming others. I don't want to irritate my friends and potential guests in the tech industry, so I don't talk about it very much. It requires courage, even for me to talk about it now, because I don't want to irritate any of my wealthy friends who may own property here in Venice. I aspire to own property here in Venice one day. Our company is certainly here. I think that you won't be able to solve this problem, though, unless you have the courage to combat greed in Venice. And I think greed has come here in all of its sophisticated technical manifestations. And it's a community that's heart was not in that place, a progressive community. And I think wrestling with the greed of the technology business, which is a greed-driven business. You know, everyone wants to make money in tech. They want to make billions and billions of dollars. As more and more of those people come here, that stew and chemistry between the people who want Venice to represent everything that's beautiful and great in progressive society, and the people who think it's a great place to start a business or maybe even change the world in a technical way, those forces are colliding here. I'm afraid to deal with it. I hope you find the courage. That's all I have to say.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Ballou, and I am the daughter of a 76-year-old senior citizen, one of the first and longtime residents of the senior housing facility on Oceanfront Walk between Navy and Rose. And I'm here speaking completely personally on my own behalf and on her behalf, not on behalf of the building, not on behalf of the building management or HUD housing or anything like that. My mother is on a fixed income. She's Social Security income. Of course, she's a retired registered nurse herself. She has dedicated her entire life to social service, to saving lives and helping others. As your statistics so adequately displayed, the situation around that building in particular, as the homeless and unfortunate people in the situation continue to get pushed down farther and farther towards the edge of Santa Monica, it has deteriorated so dramatically that the homeless population around is literally surrounding the perimeter of that building at this point, particularly at night. All four sides, but during the day on two sides, the front facing the beach, and on the side adjacent to this Jewish senior facility. I have personally seen, as I've walked in to visit my mother, I can't live there, I'm, not old enough, I'll never be able to live there. She waited many, many years on waiting lists to be on that, to get access to that building. She came up on a lotto. We're very grateful that she's there. I've personally, though, in the last year, seen use of crack cocaine as I tried to visit her by two people, urinating, defecation, sex between partners, a man and a woman in between in one sleeping bag, fights over their location. This is my tent area, puppies, and so on and so forth. My concern is that this situation is creating a building of terrified elderly residents. It's almost like elder abuse. They are now afraid to enter and exit their own building. They used to take walks, and they're fearful of coming in and out. They don't know what they're going to run into. I don't know what I'm going to run into. The bottom line is we would respectfully like some sort of investigation or option to consider a clear order or ordinance around the senior housing facility or around other facilities like it to protect our senior citizens, those who have paid their dues, who paid into the system, who deserve to have some peace and calm and quiet. And that's what I'm respectfully requesting you look at. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jordan Nielsen. Hello. So this is my first time, not a great public speaker, but I'll give it a shot. I brand new to Venice, just about 2 months here. And so Mike, I would like to suggest as myself, my personal goals and passion are to sort of put myself out there as like a universal employee, be able to do any job, anytime. If I'm there, it needs to be done, I'd be happy to do it, cleaning up bathrooms, things of that nature. So, I personally support bathrooms being open 24/7. I'd be there if I had, the right backing, more citizens, people who respected the law, as it's written, should be enforced as well. So, with that said, I think Venice is, it's a great place. I personally wish I could just stay 23 years old forever, go back in time a year and a couple months, Yeah, right? Well, if we work hard enough, maybe. So with that said, I think that, this whole city of Los Angeles, I think it'd be great to pull it together. Neighboring, other cities, all of California eventually, really pushing for that global spectrum of things, not to frighten anyone with that, unified government, but it's, we might as well come to a place of complete agreement on something and just pretend that, not be Californians. Not everybody's an actor. Montana, they taught me to be real, so here I am, not pretending to be on television. Or, I don't know how to cry. So, with that said, peace, love, happiness, same old stuff, and thank you very much. So, if I have 24 seconds, I just remembered, I would love to post up, for the perimeter, the parking lot, right at the top of Venice, like a collapsible sort of housing, just, little 8x8, 10x10, something that you can fit over the wall and pull out for, just say daytime, something like that for vendors to be legally able to have a sheltered unit where they could use it to hide away from the rain sometimes. Thank you.
Hi, John Seeley. I have several hats here, both as a reporter for the Argonaut, covering some homelessness related issues, as an unhoused person in a camper, and as a foundation president with the Southern California Americans for Democratic Action Foundation. And I may be one of the few unhoused foundation chairs in the state. Well, let's just start at the micro level, and thank you for your commitment on the Westminster Senior Center stories. That's a step forward. Also, at sort of the micro level, I would like to second the comments of those folks who have challenged the idea that the police can adequately handle these mental health issues. I mean, we've not only had the 2 killings here, but there's other ones in South Central and in Hollywood, and I think the emphasis needs to be on other first responders and minimize LAPD involvement. On the medium level, I mean, we have, you know, a bunch of good intentions here, whether they're the road to hell or to improvement is yet to be seen, and we'll have to all cooperate like on these tax issues. But I would like to say on the macro level, there's a limit, and I mean, I'm addressing the audience here more than the councilman. There's a limit to what any city can do when we consider that the provenance of homeless is in national policies of funding. I mean, the cuts at the VA, which has, you know, produced oodles of homeless veterans, not to mention the wars, which we didn't have to have, the funding for mental health, and the councilman mentioned the, you know, that there was a reduction in funding for the domestic violence victims. We really have to focus on the big picture and the, you know, where homeless people come from, which is unfunded services. So I hope people are thinking very carefully about Bernie and the upcoming election, when we have a president who's going to find some funding for these services, be it, you know, at the expense of Wall Street and your important elections coming up. Thank you, and thank you for your work.
Let me just thank everybody again for coming tonight. I appreciate the comments, I appreciate the questions, I appreciate the feedback. I am going to be out at various venues and various locations getting more feedback. I believe I owe it to everybody, and that's what we'll be doing. I want to thank folks for being here tonight, though. I wanted to put this together as quickly as possible after the city and the county approved their comprehensive strategies. Because, as I said when we approved it, it was a day where it was very easy for the elected officials to congratulate themselves. But we didn't accomplish anything the day we approved the plans. If solving homelessness is a marathon, all we did on that day was fill out the registration forms for the race. And now we need to actually beginning to run the race. And I'm hoping that my colleagues, the other elected officials in the city of Los Angeles, will try to come up with similar implementation plans in their areas. I'm going to be looking at other parts of my district for implementation plans as well, for housing and for services, but because Venice has the largest concentration of homelessness in my district and one of those in the city, I wanted to start here. So I want to thank everybody again for being here tonight, and I look forward to continued dialogue on these issues, and I certainly hope I can count on community support for a number of the things I introduced tonight. Thank you.